What's up, everybody? Hopefully, you guys are having a good day. Um, Today is November 4th, the day before the election. That I do a live stream just to kind of see what people are thinking out there and if you guys are getting ready to vote. And would love to get your feedback and thoughts. And anyway, we're gonna have a fun stream here. Oh, notifications! Turn those off. If any of you or other YouTube channels that want to come up on this stream, let me know if you guys have got any thoughts, and we can put a link in the chat for everybody. But anyway, what are you guys thinking? I'd love to see your thoughts in the comments here. For me, I've been reading a lot of information. I'm trying to understand, what might happen tomorrow. I got my mail-in ballots filled out today. I don't trust mailing them in California. So I'll be taking those and hand delivering them tomorrow in the morning and getting that vote in. And then I've got a daughter that has hers in the mail. So that'll be coming soon too. My other daughter is going to go sign up in Virginia and do a provisional ballot. She's able to do that the day of, which is going to be great. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Put a 1 in the chat if you've already voted. Put a 2 in if you plan to vote tomorrow. I'd love to see what you guys are thinking and what your plans are. In addition to that, I put a poll out on my channel, and let me see if I can pull it up real quick. If I can, I'll show it to you guys. So this was kind of interesting. All right. Just give me just a second here as I pull it up. Okay. All right, so let's see if I can share it now. Just give me a second here, everybody. Okay, so this is what I wanted to share. I put a poll up today that said, where does former President Trump show up on your state's ballot? Please leave the state and the rank from the top. Okay, maybe that was a little bit confusing, but I was trying to do it quickly. In California, as you can see here, he comes down at the very end here. I know in past, when I voted in other states, a lot of times they'll have the Republican and Democrat nominee at the very top. Here in California, they've just put him at the bottom. It's not, I guess maybe it's going by alphabetical order with Trump at the bottom there. But here's where the real issue comes into play. When it comes into the digital side, if you're doing electronic voting here, you have to click this more button down here to see him. It just doesn't show up. And so it's very easy for people to not potentially see that. Yeah, it's not going to let me zoom in on that picture there. And you just hit next. So I think those can be some issues there. So hopefully in most states, what you're looking at is in alphabetical order. Hopefully that's how it's set up here. I don't know if it's being cut off. In some states, I think it was Texas, has Trump listed at the top. So it doesn't go by alphabetical order in some of the states. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I'll take that off there too. So what about you guys? For those of you that have already voted, are you seeing, some interesting things going on? Have you seen any issues that you've noticed or heard about in the news from any of the voting that's going on? So, I'm a huge fan of the U.S. Constitution. I think everybody that has the ability to vote, that's a U.S. citizen, should get out and and vote. And I don't want to tell people how to vote. I just want to teach correct principles and then have you guys decide on your own to go out and make a vote. What I will tell you is I think this is the most important election that we've ever had in the Union or in the Republic. And the reason for that is I think this election is going to determine whether we head more towards socialism and we start to look even more socialistic than Europe. I think there's a lot of that's going to be coming into play if we go down a Harris direction. Some of you may like socialism. Maybe that's what you're hoping for. More social programs, higher taxes, things along those lines. Maybe you just don't like Donald Trump. So I know there's a lot of people that are going that direction for Harris. On the flip side with Trump, I think we have the ability to get someone in there that could return us back to sound money. I think we've got someone that's willing to take a bet on evaluating how the federal government spends its funds and how large these organizations are and whether they need to continue to run the way they are. So I think there's some efficiencies that can come into play. I also think another big thing that's at play here this round is things along the lines of income tax, tariffs. How do we do trading? I think the Supreme Court could very well be at risk. We could see court packing. One side has already talked about doing that pretty heavily on the Democratic side. And on the Republican side, I think what you might see is a lot of potential cleaning up. Maybe we'll see term limits. I don't know. So what are the hot issues for you guys? I'd love to have you put down below what some of those hot issues are for you guys. And I'm going to look at your comments here. So welcome OC Stacker to the chat. And also we've got Jeff Thule Tiger Thomas. Welcome. WWE Italian. Can only pray we save the country. I think so. I'll tell you guys why I think it's really important. Vintage Joe voted yesterday. So we've got a couple people that have already voted. It looks like quite a few are going to be going tomorrow. Michael Stack will be voting in person tomorrow, and which I think is the way to do it. I wish they weren't mailing all these ballots out. I think it just gives too many opportunities for people to influence people's votes, and maybe even stack it a little bit. Yodi, and we got David Alchema in here too. Hopefully I didn't say your name wrong there. Steve the Rooster. We've got Yodi. He was thinking of dropping off his ballot tonight in a drop box, but scared the drop box might catch fire. Yeah. So I personally would not mail any ballots, and I wouldn't drop them off personally. I'd make sure that you see the person put it into the machine, if you can do that in your state, or to make sure that it's going into the right place within the polling place. You really don't want to run any risks of fires. We've already seen at least one drop box on fire. Okay. Tennessee has Trump at the top. So it does just kind of differ and depend on how they have these things stacked and set up. Joe Rogan just endorsed Trump. That's pretty good. So, endorsing is one thing. Telling people they have to do something is another thing. So I think everybody's got their own free will and choice to go make those decisions. But I'll tell you guys, why I think this is going to be the most important election, as well as who I think is going to give us the best chance to move things forward. Italian G, welcome. It lives in Florida. My third time voting for Trump. So he's got that down. We've also got Stacker Man's Rabbit Hole. Amen, the Republic. Yes. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about what kind of form of government we're supposed to have, what we're living in today, and depending on who you vote for, where it may go from here, because I think that's going to be huge too. Let's see. So this is interesting too, guys. We've got Minnesota and Michigan Muslim leaders endorsing Trump. A lot of times you hear that Trump's a racist. So that's interesting. I would agree with this. I think socialism is anti-God. I think it's also anti-family. It's also anti-individual. Socialism really goes from the standpoint that we're going to share everything equally. The problem is that not everybody's a producer. And I'm not talking about people that are handicapped that can't do things. But there's a lot of people that just don't have the motivation, right? You get a lot of freeloaders in a system like that, and you also take away a lot of the incentives. Therefore, there's a lot of inefficiency. So far, I've yet to see a good socialist government that's running and functioning better than a capitalist one. However, I'd argue that we're not really living in a capitalist one right now. I know we're supposed to be living in a capitalist society, and we have a lot of things that look like that, but I don't think we're really living in one today, at least not one that's based on a free market that is also free of manipulation and free of, I don't know, I guess manipulation is the best word to use for that. Gerald Draper's in the house. Welcome. Vintage Joe. We are in terrible geopolitical shape. If the status quo is maintained, things could get much worse. I agree with that. I think we're in some pretty dire times. Yodi's scared. I don't want you to be scared. We're going to talk about why you guys should not be scared. We're going to talk about that today as well. This is interesting. 45 minutes just to get in the building. They are lining up and voting. So I think we're going to see some huge turnouts tomorrow. That might be the one issue we run into is I've heard some of the voting locations are not well staffed, and so some of them people are having to wait in these massive lines. Um, so that could be an issue, guys. Make sure you plan for that tomorrow. We've got Lightning 333 in the house. Welcome. Why is it a thing still? Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. So, um, you know, when we get down to voting, it's very interesting because not everybody that has the ability to vote votes. And voting is something that we see as a privilege, not as something that you have to do. Otherwise, every citizen would be required to vote. Because it is a privilege, people have to go out of their way to do these things and to vote. So you hear a lot of times that there is issues with voter suppression. That's something that Republicans are blamed on all the time, that they're trying to repress people that don't have the ability to make it to the DMV to get a license. You have other issues with people that may not be mobile enough to get to a voting location. There are ways to get around that. There's ways to help those people that can't do that. But they use that argument to get rid of the whole idea of using voter ID. Frankly, anybody that's pushing to not use voter ID, I think they've got some major issues there. Most of them, I think, have an agenda that they're trying to push. But the reality is you have to use an ID when you go on an airplane. You have to use an ID to pick up certain prescription drugs. You've got to use an ID to drive a car. You've got to use an ID when you enter into a lot of different buildings. And so, I just don't buy this fact that the most important thing that we can do in the country civically, which is voting, that's something that does not require authentication. I think that's crazy. So I really do think that's something that is one of our biggest things that has to get fixed nationally, is that you have to show some kind of identification that shows that you're a citizen. Right now people could show birth certificates, and if they don't have them, they can take the time to get them, and we can have organizations set up to help people set that up that are nonprofit to help get those votes out there. But I do think that's something that we've got to watch out for. So quick shout out. Thank you, Jeff Toohey Tiger Thompson just gifted 5 Stacking Surfer memberships. Hopefully you guys use those. For any of you that got those memberships, we do a Zoom call once a month, as well as occasionally there'll be other videos that are coming out. I'm going to start getting some special live streams. Maybe we'll do that weekly or monthly, but we'll be talking to the group to see what makes the most sense. But thank you for that. All right. Yeah, socialism is bad, guys. I don't like it either. And I would say this is one of our biggest problems in society, is that we've become anti-family. We're having population declines because people are having fewer than 3 kids. You have to have 3 kids in order to grow the population. If you're only having 2, you're not growing the population. And without that growth, we're going to have stagnant areas of the economy. And if all of our growth is coming in through immigration, then you start to run into assimilation problems, especially if those that are immigrating tend to have more children per capita per couple than those that are already here in the country. And so one of the biggest problems we have in society today, in my opinion, is that we've forced households to have 2 income earners in the house because everything's become so expensive. And a lot of that goes to going off the gold standard, in my opinion. And some of it goes back to just World War II and the necessities of women having to go to the workplace. So, I'm not talking about people that want to go do that, but there's a lot of people that would rather stay home and raise their children. Sometimes it's the husband, but it's usually the wife. And for that reason, I think the family's been torn apart from a lot of society. And a lot of those issues, I think, stem from the way the government functions and the way it sends incentives and everything else. So, we overly incentivize people that have 2 working households and doing things like tax cuts for daycare, which I think can be important for some households that maybe have a single parent. But it can encourage people to be single parents. So there's things like that that can be a little tricky. We really don't have anything that's set up for a mom that stays home to take care of kids, for example. So there's things like that that I think that could be worked on. And sometimes I think we look at this concept of single parents being one of the biggest things. We want to support the single parents that are out there, but I'm sure most single parents wish they weren't a single parent. I think most of them wish that they had a family, that they could be together. And hopefully some of that will happen in the future for those folks. All right, what else we got in here? Okay, I'm going to try to get caught up here, guys. Oops, this one here. So we'll talk a little bit about fractional reserve lending today, but we'll talk a lot more about that with Andy Sheckman next Tuesday at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern, when we talk about being your own bank. And then if everything goes well, I should be interviewing Lynette Zhang on the 13th of November, and then we'll get that out a few days later. But yeah, fractional reserve lending is another part of all these issues too, guys. But a lot of it goes back to 1971 when we really came off the gold standard. I'll see if I can find a chart here in a minute, but what really happened is we basically decoupled the average wealth of our families, and those that have a lot of assets became way richer, and those that did not have a lot of assets basically stayed the same and stayed very flat. I'll have to see if I can find the chart for us. But that's where a lot of things came into play. And the reality is we've got to retool, in my opinion, a lot of things that are going on in the government. So Stacker Man's Rabbit Hole will be voting tomorrow. That's awesome. Salty Silver. Don't be lazy. Let Democrats be lazy this time. Vote my family across the country, please. So if someone illegally votes, they steal a vote from a legal citizen. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It depends on if they're using a registered person's information, or if somehow they're just being allowed to make a vote. But this brings up a good question that OC was mentioning to me too, which is, are we going to have a situation where we end up with more people voting? I think OC was saying this. Maybe it wasn't OC. Maybe it was another coworker. What if we end up having like 580 million people, which is way more than what the number of people we have in this country, voting? What happens? Do they do a recount? I believe that's something that would probably make its way up to the Supreme Court, and I think we would probably have to do a recount. And at that point, maybe we'd end up getting paper ballots, which I think is the way to go down the road. So Pennsylvania is the keystone state and is going to be very important in this election. Yeah, I agree. We were talking about that as you guys knew too. So fight, vote, vote, vote. All right. Let's see here. So this is the other thing. I'll just kind of reiterate on this too. I feel for anybody that's a single parent that has to take on everything. I feel for those also that have to have both the husband and wife working, especially if you have young ones at home and you have the ability to, or you want the ability to take care of them. Anyway, I think that's a thing that can be very hard for a lot of households. And I'm not saying we take away the ability for people to get help with their daycare. What I'm saying is that a lot of the incentives are set up in a way that tend to incentivize behavior. And a lot of times it's behavior that maybe the society would be better off not incentivizing. Okay. So John M. is in Pennsylvania voting tomorrow morning. He's going to pull the Trump flag. All right. Yeah, if you guys are out there and you notice anything, let people know for sure. So, and then Mr. and Mrs. West Texas Stacker wants to derail it. Just give me a second here. All right, so we can talk about this for a second here. Why do people say that ASEs are better? Because they are government backed. The paper, let's see. Okay, I'm not exactly sure what you're saying there, but I think what you're asking for is why do people like ASCs over, say, silver rounds? Um, so I'll briefly hit on that, but I'll tell you why I like them. Um, there's a big difference in quality of an American Silver Eagle to a Buffalo Round. They look way nicer. They tend to hold up better. They have markings on there that they are from the United States. They have a marking of a value on it. Um, they're very recognizable, and for that reason, I think if you can get ASCs for close to the price of rounds, I don't know why you would buy a round ever, in my opinion. Now, if you're looking at like a $7 to $10 difference, then I can see the reason why you might want to go with rounds. Um, Now, there's some laws that are being passed around the country that make it favorable to having ASCs, and if you were using those, you wouldn't have to pay taxes. And I think that's another reason why a lot of people look at it as it's a coin of our country, and therefore it's one that it may have favorable tax ramifications. Now, going forward, I'm hoping if Trump makes it into the presidency, which I'm hoping he does personally, um, I think one of the things I hope we hear from him is that he's looking to remove things like income tax on gold and silver. It's in the Constitution that it's money. Money should not be taxed itself. It is the means of transferring value from one place to the next. And so I'd like to see that get dropped so that there's no taxes on those transactions anymore. If things like that happen, then I do think rounds start becoming more favorable than just ASCs. But I don't think you can go wrong with ASCs. It really depends on how much money you have and the ability to go after things. Yankee has talked quite a bit about, looking at weight. If you're in a bartering situation, and that is one way it might play out, but it may also play out that if you're going up to a food stand at a farmer's market and you're using an ounce of silver to buy stuff, they may give you a better benefit if you're using an ASC over a round. We just don't know until it happens. If you look at it today, people are willing to pay a lot more money for a Libertad than they are for even a Silver Eagle, and a lot more than they're willing to pay for a silver round. Why does that preference exist? Because it does, and there's a preference there. So I wouldn't write off preferences as being something that won't happen. But those are some of the reasons I think people like to go after the ASCs. They also have a limited amount of mintage. We know how many are minted of those. We don't necessarily know how many buffaloes are minted, and those come from many different companies, and the quality does differ. Okay, so Craig already got his vote in. Yeah, so keep doing that, guys. If you're just coming in, put a 1 in if you voted. Put a 2 in if you have not yet. Okay, and hit that thumbs up if you guys haven't done so already. So, what I want to talk about today a little bit more too is not so much about, who wins, but a little bit some of the ramifications that I think will happen and some of the outcomes that might come on based on the different directions people are looking at, as it pertains to the economy and pertains to precious metals and money in general. So let's see. I want to look at your comments real quick, and then we'll jump into that. David F. is a whale. Congratulations, buddy. 4 monster boxes of ASCs and 3,000 generic rounds. I think you're good. I think that's a much more than a great start. I think that's a great stack. And I think it's the kind of thing that, you're balancing out. You've got more, generic rounds than you have ASCs. When it comes to stacking the metals, it's more important that you have the metals than exactly how you stack them. You're going to have different preferences over time. I think the key is you do want to get the price as low as you can per ounce. But there's reasons to stack different kinds of product. So, I used to have 100-ounce bars. I've sold all of those and I've moved it into rounds or into Silver Eagles. I do still have some 5-ounce bars and some 10-ounce bars. And I've decided for me, I just don't want to go larger than the 10-ounce bars. Other people love the kilo bars. So that's just preference for me, making it easier to transact and things like that. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay. So Virginia doesn't tax silver or gold either, but I believe the federal does. At least I've had to pay some of that. So um, got another interesting comment here too. If less than 1% of the population stacks silver, would it be fair to say that most people wouldn't know what one would look like? I would disagree with that. I think most people will look at the coin and be able to see that it says United States on it, and I think they would recognize that as a silver coin. Um, it's extrapolated that about 10 to 20% of the population has some silver. So stacking it definitely is more like 1% to half of a percent. But a lot of people in the country have some silver in their house, jewelry, coinage. So I think you're looking at about 10 or 11% or so that have some kind of U.S. silver coins in their house. Okay, so we got a lot of people that are out there still voting and have done quite a bit. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, I like a diverse stack. So what I try not to do is go too diverse. So I went too diverse right off the bat, and I'm changing that. So I have probably 1,000 different SKUs of coins that are out there, and that makes it hard to keep track of stuff on a spreadsheet. It makes it hard to know what you paid for things and what they're worth. Um, I think a diversity from the kind of silver, maybe not diversity from the design of silver. And what I mean by that is, I think it's good to have silver rounds, constitutional silver, sovereign coins. When it gets into the silver side, I think those are all important to have. And you know, I just think be careful with getting too many separate different kinds of designs, especially if you're paying, more than $5 an ounce over the spot price. So if you're starting to buy some really fun collectible stuff that's getting into the $40 to $50 per ounce range for silver, or even $100, make sure it's something that you really like that you're planning on holding on to and passing to your family. Um, that stuff's not going to be very barterable. It's not going to be stuff that you're really going to sell, and you don't want a lot of it. So be careful with that. Um, all right. So yes, let's talk about markets for a minute here. Um, I think it's going to be interesting tomorrow. There's a lot of talk around if Trump's elected that Bitcoin's going to take off, um, and there's talk of Bitcoin and cryptos getting hit hard if Harris wins. That's really the only part of the economic model I've really seen a whole lot of on there. I haven't had time to do a lot of research. I don't have a ton of money in stocks. In many stocks, I do have a couple stocks that I have a fair amount of. For me, I'm not looking to hurry and unload everything right now. I don't think there's going to be a drastic swing come tomorrow with the election. I do think if the Democrats win, I think you're looking at probably more spending that's going on, and more likely more inflation. I don't think they've really tamed that at all. And, I don't believe the CPI numbers that come out, that they're not very accurate. Inflation is still there. I'm still seeing prices go up. It's just not going up quite as fast as it did a year ago. But what I would say is that we're probably going to see prices of metals go up with both candidates. Now, could we have a drop down for a while? Could we have a stock market correction for a while? We could have both of those things, especially if there's uncertainty. I've heard some people say that it may take up to, all the way until Thanksgiving to know who the president is. If that happens, I think it's definitely going to make a big difference, in volatility. So right now, my thought is don't go too crazy, be doing anything too drastic. Kind of wait and see what happens with things in the market. I always like to have a little bit of dry powder in case we do have dips, to buy precious metals and to buy other stocks. And I do play around with cryptos a little bit, guys. So I do buy those when they're dipping and do things with it. That's a whole nother thing, another conversation. But I do think that we will have some great opportunities to pick up at deals. And I think we're also going to see, metals continuing to move up. You could see things like this happening too. You could see, if Trump wins, you could see him calling up different leaders and starting to have conversations with them. We could also see leaders doing things like potentially maybe China makes a move on Taiwan because they think they need to hurry and do it. Or maybe they decide they're not going to touch it at all. It's not worth it. Okay, let's see. So yeah, buy that stuff. If you can get rare coins at the same price as junk, I would buy that. So a lot of people have XRP. And I think the play on XRP, just to kind of throw it out there for you guys, really for me centers around CBDCs. If countries start releasing CBDCs and we start seeing a lot more digital banking going on, I think there's going to be a play for XRP, and that you could get a lot of money out of that. Otherwise, it seems to be a token that just does not do much. It just kind of sits there. This is something I would definitely reiterate. If you don't have a lot of junk silver, or constitutional silver, I'd look at picking some up. That's going to be your easiest stuff to barter with if we get into a bartering situation. Dimes are drying up pretty fast. They're becoming even more expensive than the other coins. Quarters are good. Even $half are good. And I consider part of my constitutional or junk silver peace dollars and Morgans, but not the expensive ones, the ones that you're going to be picking up for, closer to spot price. I put them in that same category. All right, let's see what else we got from you guys. Yeah, I agree with that. Things can be beautiful. They can be really fun. Just, don't go crazy on them. So David Tester's got a prediction for us here. When markets fall, bottom of gold, no lower than 2,200. Worst case, 2,500 will be around. The average drop, silver bottom would be 2658. So here's my thoughts on this, guys. I still have a video that's sitting on my channel. It's the video that new people see. And I talk about having silver and gold drop drastically this year. And I also talk about it going above, I think, 2,500, which it's done. So let me tell you why I thought those things. So one, inflation's still out there. The Fed needs to raise rates, not cut them, to tame the inflation. Even if the Fed keeps lowering rates like it is now, we're going to probably still see the 10-year go up. And so don't expect to get lower rates on cars and home loans and things like that just because the Fed's lowering rates. They don't necessarily affect each other. So you do have that in effect. Anyway, if rates were to get raised, then we would definitely see the prices of the metals go down. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I don't really see a situation where we see metals going much further than what Dave's saying here. I even think 2,200 would be pretty low. I think 2,600 would be $26 would be pretty low for silver. Where we could see situations like that is if we get a large market correction. In the stock market, we could see people needing to cover their margins and their shorts, or not their shorts, but their long positions. And from doing so, they may be selling some of their gold and silver contracts, which will affect the spot price. We could also see them selling their cryptos off pretty heavily too. So that could be something that comes into effect. All right. Gerald Draper's off to dinner. Have fun, buddy. Okay, let's see. So this is another thing that's pretty crazy too. So I personally would like to see derivatives get completely outlawed. I'm sure there's some form of reason for them, at least why they gave, whatever reason they gave to create them in the first place. But I think they're horrible. Paper things that aren't real like that, I think are really bad. Even if you look at the stock market in general, just because you own a stock doesn't mean that the stock can't go to zero, even if the business still functions. The stock price is independent from the value of the company. There are markers that kind of work with each other, but you can have a company that is still worth billions of dollars and have its stock go down to 5 pennies from a much higher rate. I've seen that happen personally from $80 to 5 pennies. It can be ugly, guys. So definitely hedge any of that stuff you've got out there. So Craig's got some crypto. It's been sitting around for a long time. Yeah, probably worthwhile looking at it to see what you have. And crypto scares me. So what I'll tell you guys is here's my opinion on crypto. Um, to me, crypto is software. I'm in the software business, and crypto to me looks just like accounting software. It's a ledger. It's a way to keep track of something, and you have a finite number. They have serial numbers on them, and these things are basically traded, and they've created the market to where the value in fiat dollars of that item goes up and down. So in a lot of ways, these cryptocurrencies look like money. They also serve functions in DeFi, so you can have them. You can have a token or a coin run as a loyalty program. You can have it run as a way to transact and move money between point A and B very quickly. With Bitcoin, it has a lot of the characteristics of gold, which is why they call it digital gold. But it's still digital. It still requires electricity. It requires the computers. It requires people to have devices to be able to interact with it and use it. It really hasn't taken off from a standpoint of people transacting with it very much. I think the biggest thing that was out there was Tesla using it to buy cars, and they turned that off. So I'd be careful with crypto. If you're on the older side and you're not good with computers, I would avoid it. I just think it's too messy for you guys. If you really want to get involved in any of it, they've got Bitcoin ETFs. But for me, it's a thing that maybe I put 1%, maybe 3% of my wealth at the very most into it, and I'm a technology guy. I know a lot of people that are going 10, 20% into crypto. I just don't trust it. To me, these things can fail. They can be hacked. There can be problems with it. Okay, maybe we can't hack it today, but we do have computers that are being created that could potentially do it down the road. And if you talk to the big Bitcoiners, they'll basically, talk you into it's the best thing that's out there. The reality is it's still not something physical you can hold on to. I can't give my friend next door a handshake if the electricity goes out for 2 years and transact with it. And I know that's kind of an extreme case, but it's not off the table of potentially happening. So for me, it's not a place I want to store a massive amount of my wealth. But I do have some of it. That would be great. And I think that's the point. One thing I've been taught from a kid with church is that there's a pride cycle out there where God blesses people, they get very prosperous, and then all of a sudden they get prideful and they start to fall. And then when they fall, they get very humbled and humility comes into play and they find God again and they go back through. And I think that's what's happening here. The question is, can we as a country pull ourselves out of that and get into the point of being able to make it work? So if we can get our country out of this, pride cycle and getting, putting God back into things, I think we've got a chance of fixing stuff, but it's got to be a majority of the country. And so, maybe we'll see some things here of God kind of awakening people up and shaking them a little bit. So John says this here. I won't repeat all of that out, but in reality, if you're wanting to hold long-term, Bitcoin would be the best crypto, in my opinion, to hold long-term. Some of the other ones you can do trades with. Some of them have a few functions, but majority of them are going to get wiped out at some point, and you'll probably just see Bitcoin hanging around. But I would reiterate that is the safest one to look at if you're looking at cryptos. So John M's got a prediction there for you guys. Check that out. And we've got another John. Johns are on fire with predictions today. Silver going to 75. These are all numbers I'm hearing to you guys. We might even see 3,000 in gold by the end of the year. That's what a lot of brokerage firms are saying, and some of the big banks. Let's see. I'll find a couple more comments trying to get caught up with you guys. Okay, we're almost there. It's a piece of history. They're not making more of it. They're hard to find. That's why your Confederate note would be worth more. Ledger is what I've got too. A lot of people have those. You got to check around with it. But if you guys don't want to, if you're not messing around with that, ETFs are your best bet. One of the risks I do think with crypto is I do think they're going to outlaw self custody at some point. And when they outlaw self custody, Bitcoin loses a lot of its desire for me at that point if it just becomes ETFs. Yes, I agree, Craig. So I think that's a lot of what we're seeing right now. I think that's one of the problems we're having. And let's see. Buffett and Charlie Munger do not like crypto. And what they say about crypto, I completely agree about. I definitely would not leave my wealth in there. If you've made a lot of money from crypto, I'd be cashing a good chunk of that out personally. Putting that into precious metals. I think the precious metals will outperform crypto. I think specifically silver is going to blow away Bitcoin and all of the gains that people think they're going to get from Bitcoin. You guys, it's way undervalued. It should be way higher. If silver goes 1 to 10, or even potentially 1 to 1 with gold, you're going to see returns way better than what Bitcoin can even offer, what people are predicting. But that's just my thought, not financial advice. You definitely want to check that stuff on your own. But when you have something that's doing really well, like right now, I've got a house that I've got a lot of equity in. I'm kind of thinking, do I take some of this equity out of my house and put it into another investment? Usually investments don't go up forever. We've never seen one do that. So you want to play cycles, is one thing to look at. God does not hold Bitcoin, but he did create gold and silver, which is interesting. So that's where I like to put my money. I like to try to make some money with my cryptos, and sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. Okay, a revival would be great, guys. I think that would help. There you go. So what I will tell you with investing in general is it is something you guys really want to learn about, even if you hire brokers or financial advisors to help you. You want to talk to them a lot. You want to have regular conversations with them. You want to have a good understanding of how they charge fees, and you want to see what that motivation is behind those fees. And that will dictate how they interact with you. The other thing you want to do is start to understand and become more financially literate on your own to understand when and why certain things are happening. If you don't understand crypto, but you hear people talking about it and you want to jump into it, start researching it, do some research on it, understand how it works, and understand how to use it and to take it off of the exchanges. And then I think the other thing you got to do with it too is you've got to understand how these markets work. That stuff moves so quickly and is so volatile. If you don't have a stomach for day trading type things, you need to hide it away, or you need to have someone else help you with some of that. Gold and silver is a little bit easier because it's something that frankly is harder to sell. You've got to physically take it somewhere. And it doesn't move as fast as the cryptos do. And so I think that's a lot easier for most people to hold on to for savings. But gold and silver is not going to make you rich. Gold is wealth insurance and silver is for bartering. And it's also to be used as just money. So, if you're stacking gold and silver, expecting that you're going to become very rich off of it, that's, in my opinion, the wrong way to do it and the wrong way to look at it. But I do think there's some opportunities we have coming up where we could have revaluations of gold down the road. We could see, the shorting that's going on with silver breakout. And we could see the COMEX fall apart at some point, or we could see people deciding that they don't want derivatives anymore. Things can happen to where you can have a huge shift and then all of a sudden you could become pretty wealthy off gold and silver, but that's definitely not something I would plan on. Okay, let's see. Yeah, our biggest fear is if we have a Democrat-controlled Congress, Senate, and president, just from some of the things they've said of going after long-term capital gains, estate taxes, and unrealized gains. So, that's what they've said. Those are things that I don't like. I think they'll hurt the economy. I'd like to see income tax go away. I'd like to see the Fed go away. personally. Um, let's see. So don't tell me how much money you make. Tell me how much you save. Yeah, that's a good idea. Honestly, that's really the only thing that kind of matters anyway. And if you look at it, you could have someone making a million. I know people that make $1 million a year and they're paycheck to paycheck. And it's because they spend a lot of money. And I know people that make $100,000 a year and they're saving money. So that is true. Uh, Someday, but probably not in your lifetime. So $100 bill today, they make a lot of them. I think it's fun to hold on to some really crisp bills. I do have like the last three kinds of $100 bills. I just like to keep a couple samples of that for my family to show them down the road. Paper money is not going to be around forever. They'll most likely get rid of it. And when that happens, I think those become more collectible. But in reality, it's going to take a long time for that to happen. They have to suck a lot of those $100 bills away before that's going to mean much. This is possible. It's very possible that crypto was created to keep people away from the metals so that the banks could buy the metals. I don't hear central banks buying cryptocurrency, but I don't know if that's the reason. It could be a reason of it. It could be that Bitcoin was created to basically suck up all the wealth, and they turn the switch off on it. And I know people that love Bitcoin don't think that's possible, but it totally is possible. You could just hack all the miners or the major miners, and you could pretty much shut the thing down. You don't have to shut the whole thing off for enough people to be freaked out that it's going to go down, that they don't want to use it. They don't have a way of shutting off my gold and silver. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And you can have boating accidents. Happens sometimes. Let's see. Yep, that's what silver does. It'll buy you stuff. So Silver Heist is in the house. Welcome. He says some high salary workers are living Rolex to Rolex. There you go. It's very true. It's kind of funny, especially here in California. You look around and you see the kind of cars that people drive. I've got a Honda and an old Acura out in front, and I think I got the crappiest cars on the street. And one good thing about that is my house is least likely to be broken into because it doesn't look like I've got a lot of money. And my neighbors keep buying these really expensive cars and spending a ton of money on them. And then you've got a lot of people here that send their kids to private schools, which cost a lot of money. And then you've got people that like to leverage their lifestyle. So I would be curious just to know how many people in my area have, what their savings looks like compared to their income. That'd be curious to see. But I do think a lot of people live Rolex to Rolex. That's funny. Yep, Craig, I agree. So time is your best asset that you have, and it's the one that you can't get back. So AK-47 has been saving like crazy. So congratulations. I think that's awesome. Let us know what you're saving in. I'd be curious to know what you guys are saving in. So do you guys save in silver primarily? Or are you guys saving in gold? Or are you guys doing other things with it? So John M., what is really keeping the American people out of metals? I don't understand it. Just their lack of information education. I think there's a lot of things, John. I think when it comes down to it, most people aren't doing anything with metals because their parents didn't do anything with metals. I'm 48. My parents didn't grow up using, saving metals. It was just something they used in their change when they were young. And then once they got old enough to where they had households, the money didn't have silver in it anymore. So I think they didn't really think anything of it. It would be interesting to go back in time and see when Nixon announced going off the gold standard, what did people think? Were they really worried or concerned about it? It doesn't seem like it was a huge issue that they had. But I think that's the key. It was just money. It wasn't something that, they had to deal with. I think today what we're finding is with all this inflation that's been going on, and we're starting to understand, all this debt that's been created, what is money? And we're starting to wake up slowly by slowly. So I think the real issue is, it's not so much why are people not stacking, or why are they not, why aren't they stacking? It's the awareness. I mean, that's why I put a channel together on this. I started a few years ago. I got silver bars, 25-ounce silver bars. I don't have them in front of me, from my dad. And, he basically gave me these birthday gifts that he really didn't know how much they were worth until I let him know how much it was worth. And then I started getting a check for $100 after that. But it was stuff he inherited from his dad. And he really didn't know what the value of it was either. And, these are bankers that I was dealing with, coming from a banking family. And it wasn't until we started looking into it, and we both knew that, hey, when inflation kicks in, you go for gold. And when we started researching it, we found other YouTube channels, and I started, buying. I realized I bought a lot of the wrong stuff. I started buying too many collectibles. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying not to buy collectibles. What I'm saying is to be careful what you do with it. So I'm going to do a quick opening here. This is some stuff I got from one of my channel subscribers and guys that I have followed for a little bit too. But it's the Broke Stacker. So I got this in the mail from him. And I'll just do a quick shout out to his channel. If one of my mods could put his channel in there, that'd be great. But he sent me a little poker chip, some stickers that are kind of fun here. So you guys can go check out his channel. These are upside down. I got this one here. It says glow on it. Maybe it glows in the dark. I don't know. But, I want to help people out in the community. And one of the things he was doing is a hand pour. And so as I was getting started in the community, I was buying up, hand pours like this. This is I think this is made after a Spanish doubloon. But there's a replica of that. So this is a hand pour he did. It's the second one he's ever done. So you got number 2 on there. And there's some junk up in the corner, which gives character to it. And it's 3.05 ounces at the bottom, I think. But I think he did a great job. His second pour looks great. So I like to help out people in the community. But as I got started with that whole thing, what really happened is I started to understand a little bit more of the difference between collectibles, numismatic, bullion, generic rounds, sovereign coins. And I realized that I jumped a little too fast into getting more of the collectible stuff, thinking that they would just continue to go up. And these are more like Star Wars coins and Marvel coins and stuff like that. And I think it's fun to have some of them. Just don't have too many of them. Make sure it's the stuff that you like. And if you end up with too much of it, you can sell it. You can find other people that are looking for it too. I mean, they only make so many of them, and then a few years passes and people can't get them anymore. Things like this, like pours, be careful on how much you pay for them. There's a lot of channels out there that'll sell these for $50 an ounce. That's a lot of money they're making selling these things, especially when silver was $18 an ounce. They might even be selling for higher. Support them if you want. I think it's great to do. I supported Broke on this, but I wouldn't go and stack 100 of these things, right? It's going to be a little bit too expensive in a lot of places. With that, I think with Broke, I think I paid just a little over spot price for it. So he's really just excited to do some pours and get them out there. Jay Smokes, welcome. How are you? Yeah, pew pews. You got to watch out for those things. I don't know what's going to happen there exactly. I do know what Harris talked about doing in California, and that didn't make me too excited about that. Let's see. Yeah, silver. You do not want silver getting in salt water. Gold, it's all good. Doesn't matter. Let's see here. All right. How many thumbs up do we have, mods? I don't know if I have a way of seeing it easily. Okay, so I'll have to have you guys tell me that in a second. So here we go. This is an important thing to talk about too here. So when you watch Yankee Stacking's full stack, his collectibles were remarkably low. Many eagles, many maples, and junk silver. I agree. So you know, since I show my face, my wife's asked me not to do any kind of full stack reviews, so I won't be doing that. But if you look at my stack, even with having bought a lot of collectibles at the beginning, it's still a very small percentage of my stack, and I continue to shrink that down. And so, when I look at it, it really comes down um, to allocation percentages and stuff, right? So for me, I've also kind of changed my mind on what I like to kind of keep as a fun collectible coin. For me, I'm getting rid of most of my 1 ounce silver coins that are sovereign, that have some special stamp on them or whatever, like a Marvel character. I'm moving most of that, and I'm keeping some of the more fun things like a Death Star, 100-gram ball. I think that's kind of cool. It's unique. They don't make a lot of those. It's a little bit more fun, get one of those once in a while. But as far as having a massive amount of your stack that's in collectibles, I would discourage you from that, and I'd start diversifying into it. If we get to the point where we're using silver for money, people are going to waste stuff, and that's what they're going to do. They're not going to look at it and go, "Oh, you paid a ton of money for this. We're going to give you more value." That's just not going to happen. I also think the larger it is, like a 100-ounce bar, it's going to be a lot harder for you guys to use and make that practical. All right, we got the 50. Okay, we'll do a quick giveaway here for you guys. So let me see if I can get this to work. All right, can you guys hear me now? All right, that took me to the wrong screen, so let me pull this up real quick. In a second, guys. All right, so you guys can see this. This is what you got to put in. #vote, and we'll do a giveaway. So you only need to put it in once there. We got one entry. Uh-oh, if I hit this thing, one person's going to win. We got 64 of you in here. I know some of you are watching it on TV. It might be a little harder to put it in there, but I'll give you a minute to add it. Let's see if we can get at least 30 people up here. All right. Let's see. So one of the things I'm working on too, guys, is I'm debating doing something with OC Stacker where we do a whatnot, some whatnot stuff. I think we're looking at having coming up here soon. Maybe we'll end up doing some more stuff on eBay. But one thing I will do is start showing off some more of the coins that we have, especially as we go to sell them. So one, I'm not trying to go make crazy amounts of money off some of the stuff I'm selling. I'm just trying to pass on some cool coins to people for a good price. And two, I want to continue to move some of my stack around and move coins that I've that I've enjoyed. And I think that's another thing to look at too, is this thing can get boring. If all you have is buffaloes, silver buffaloes, and you have a million of those, I think you're going to get a little bored with it. If you want the hobby side of this thing, if you just want it to be money and it's savings and you put it away, great, that's fine. But find some fun coins out there. One that I just picked up recently and I don't have it in front of me is the flowing hair. I did get a privy on that, and I've sent that in for grading. Got it back in 24 hours from Tangible Investments, and here out of Laguna Beach. Great place if you guys haven't talked to them. And they were able to turn it around in a day, and they've got it up for sale right now. And so then I bought another flowing hair, and I'm hoping that one will sell for a good price. It'll basically pay for my other flowing hair. And it's a fun, cool coin that has a lot of history to it, even though it's a replica of it. All right, let's see what we got. We're at entry 25. Okay, anybody else want to put it in there? And then the other shout out I'll give out to you guys too is info at Miles Franklin. Let them know Stacking Surfer sent you. That's a way to talk to Andy if you've got any questions, Andy Scheckman. It's also a great way to pick up some good deals on gold and silver. Andy's got a great team that can help you. I just had my dad work with him, and he was able to get some great deals and also get the product that he was looking for when we were having a hard time finding gold buffaloes around. So he was able to get those, which was great. He also had, I don't know if he still has it, but 10th ounce silver eagles. I know they stopped minting those this year. All right, we're at 27. We're close to 30, but we're going to go ahead and run this real quick. All right, let's see what we get. Riot, are you in here, Riot? Hey, Tiger, you just missed the freebies. I'm giving out some AGA here. Let's see. So, Riot, if you're here, go ahead and send me an email, stackingsurfer@gmail.com, with your name and address, and that way I can send it out to you. But what I've got for you today is one of these cool gold backs. So these are pretty cool. These one gold back notes. So it's got a 1/1000th of a troy ounce of gold right there. Really thin, but pretty cool things. So I think these are pretty cool. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna call it a night. I got to go finish doing some work. I wasn't able to get everything done I needed to do for my day job yet. I will put out a note for you guys. We are going to do a 10,000 sub party. So I got a stack of stickers. These will be the only ones I make. And then I got some killer huge magnets that I'll be showing off as we get closer to it. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Should we go ahead and do a party? Should we do a GA party? One of the things I'm looking to do is for those of you that have channels out there, I want to have people come on, and if you guys would be willing to donate, a piece of silver or two to the community as GAs, we'd love to put that out to the community and then give you guys a chance to talk about your channel and to show you and have you guys come up. So email me if you have interest in that. I'm starting to put that together of the guest list of people that will come up for that. I do already have one big guest that I'm hoping will come that I've already talked to, and I'm hoping to get a few more of those guys. But hopefully that'll help. I don't know if this was good. If you guys like this, leave a comment. That you enjoyed the chat tonight. I feel like I'm just rambling when I don't have another person on here I'm talking to. But there's a lot to cover off. I am planning on doing some kind of a live stream every day until we get our president picked. I do think this is a very important election. Go out and vote. I think it's important to find out who these candidates are instead of just going down a certain ticket. And I think it is very important for you guys to understand, what's going on in the world and how precious metals work. So until next time, guys, peace out and have a good evening. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.